Yes, Sanbonani Dumelang, Goeiemorgen, good morning, fellow South Africans and all the media that is present here and are joining us this morning. It is a start of a 2021, and therefore just publicly on behalf of One South Africa movement want to wish the people of South Africa a very prosperous year. This press conference occurs well within a time where our nation also mourns the passing of not only the great musician Jonas Gwangwa, but also Jackson Mthembu, and I continue to send my condolences not only to his political party, the ANC, but also to Cabinet and to the President of the Republic. I think it would be amiss of me not to acknowledge the fact that along with those South Africans, there have been hundreds of South Africans who have lost their lives. And so as a nation, as we mourn this period of COVID, I want to send my deep condolences to families who are not only affected, infected, but are watching loved ones who are passing away. 2021 will be a significant year for our country. And that's why we cannot sit back. We need to do everything we can to ensure that we bring the change that is required. I call this press briefing this year to announce very categorically that One South Africa movement, having met this weekend, the National Council, its highest decision-making body, set this weekend to review what has been a year of One South Africa movement and to ensure that we decide on a plan for 2021. I am honestly excited about the opportunity that 2021 presents, and we are decided that ultimately One South Africa movement will be participating in the 2021 local government elections, working in partnership and in coalition with independent candidates. This decision is taken not only by the National Council, it's also comprised of OSA directors, provincial coordinators, representatives from affiliate bodies and organizations, and ultimately is empowered by the constitution of the movement to ensure that the direction and strategy of the movement takes place. We had to consider quite strongly how this participation would take place, because as you will recognize, South Africans like myself and many have all become tired of more political parties entering the fray and another participating in elections. We believe that when we started OSA in January of 2020, we committed to playing our part in building one South Africa, to building a South Africa that is fair, that is reconciled, and that is prosperous for all. To ensure this, we needed to imagine, we need to ensure that we identify, elect, and ultimately hold to account to those in government. We're convinced that the change in our country that we desperately and urgently need requires a change in both government and governance. This is not just a change of colors. It is a change of government and a change of how we govern in governance. To this end, we have to, compelled by our conviction that we have to give South Africans something new, something fresh, something that is different to what it is. And it is guided not only by the Constitutional Court judgment that was given to allow independence to run in 2024, but also the established principle that in local government, independence can stand, affirming the very principle of power to the people. I think for many South Africans who sit at home, we all feel disempowered. We can watch the Zondo Commission and wonder why no one is ending up in jail. We can watch in our communities when electricity goes out and there's selective load reduction, as they call it, in our townships, and wonder, why is no one acting on our behalf? Because the political parties have long forgotten in many ways about the plight of the citizens on the ground. I go to communities like Atteridgeville and watch how people have been impacted by floods and no one is responding. We normalize what has become abnormal in the sense that now we accept that there will be sewage running down the road, that there will be no water in other communities, that on other days others will have no electricity, and compounding the issues away from only just local government, many of our citizens are without work, are hungry, and as they confront this virus of COVID, simply cannot find easier healthcare. This requires a change. I want to affirm a few things. That if you really want to give power to the people, you need to work with the people. And it is to this effect I reaffirm again that OSA is not a political party and will not become a political party. We believe fundamentally that the party political system is fundamentally broken, and adding another party to the ever-growing list, I feel like every weekend there's a new one, is not really a viable solution. Sitting back, spectating while politicians run around, promise people things that they know they cannot deliver, we cannot be spectators to this. We have to act, and we have to act now. South Africa is asking us to step into this particular space and truly work with them to bring the change that they so desperately desire. So it's this way we really recognize that in communities, leadership is not spare. It's leadership that's not associated to political parties, that we've decided that we are going to work and support a cohort of independent candidates chosen from their communities, working with their standing as ward councillors to ensure that cities, communities can be governed in a way that gives effect to power to the people. We will demonstrate like never before that we will give this alternative to people that is different to political parties. I say this, that the steps from here to March the 31st will be to support, to train, to equip, and campaign with OSA-endorsed independents in wards across country. Working from communities and affiliates, we seek to bring change in councils and in municipalities across the country. Fellow South Africans, I want to say that independent candidates, in that sense, will come from their communities, recognized by their people, and ultimately will meet a criterion, which I will speak about in a moment, that will ensure that we can deliver the change that citizens want. We are all sick and tired of candidates being imposed on the people. We are all sick and tired of candidates who, once they get elected, leave the community that they are supposed to be serving and forget to know the issues of the community. We have to get back to working with umphakathi, with citizens, so that we can ultimately achieve the change they need. What One South Africa seeks to do is that as it works with endorsed candidates, they will be required to work with our pact, which I will circulate. They will ensure that we will equip them. We'll also work with them to build infrastructure, training, and access to tools that will help them win their respective elections. So this process commences today. I'll be going across the country to identify these independent candidates and communities which we will support and work with. In the coming days, we are inviting a process to all South Africans to submit independent candidates and wards they believe OSA should support in the upcoming elections and work with respective structures in their communities. I want to emphasize this point, that when we seek leaders and candidates, they must meet the threshold of ethical leadership and be held in high esteem in their communities. Like you, I'm tired of people who simply are not interested in the people. They're only interested in their votes so that they can self-enrich through corrupt schemes. They will be held in ethical and high leadership. So, as applications begin, we'll ensure that we know which ward and which municipality will be contested. We'll make sure we identify the name and the surname of the proposed independent candidate. We'll ensure that the best person will represent that community as a councillor. We'll also ensure that we build a campaign plan with relevant structures and communities. And we will work with organizations or community groupings in those particular communities to ensure that OSA could partner with and support the independent candidate. We know there have been many before, and not all independent candidates will be OSA candidates. But we identify those we want to work with because as we talk about our pact that we want to give between them and citizens, that they meet those standards, and therefore we are not just randomly voting for a person who we don't know will meet the threshold that we've just described. In addition to questions and answers before, each submission will also be accompanied with a list of signatures of ward residents pledging their support to their independent candidacies. And I want to urge that details will be sent to you via email, and you can send your application to wards@osa.org.za by no later than 5 p.m. on Monday, the 1st of March, 2021. In terms of training, the National Council also emphasized the need for capacity building by equipping individuals to become truly statesmen and stateswomen. Once elected, the candidates will be trained by our School of Governance that we have established to ensure that we can be effective and hold people to account pre the election, during the election, and post the elections. We want the best trained men and women in this country. This is part of OSA's core offer to candidates. And therefore, the National Council approved the following: that there will be an establishment of an OSA Academy, which is a training platform in partnership with Africa X and Advance, that will ensure that it gives programs of leadership, local governance training, and entrepreneurship and finance. Also, to work with the School of Governance, we will give training programs in partnership with the Leadership Institute, and ultimately ensure that these will resume in the early part of March, so that ultimately all of these candidates, you as a voter at home, will know that not only did you partner in selecting the best candidate, but this candidate can benefit from the best training globally, so that we have people who are excellent in delivery of service in local communities who will advance activism, advocacy, and hold municipalities to account. Ultimately, fellow South Africans, we want to ensure that these two distinct bodies, firstly, a governance oversight forum to recruit, train, and give oversight to councillors post-elections, and secondly, a campaigns committee to ensure that we give adequate support to all candidates, provided to candidates throughout the elections campaign. Because I know, like you, that running a campaign is not easy, neither is it cheap. But we want to work with these candidates to ensure that we can raise the appropriate resource so that these best men and women do not get swallowed up by political parties when they bring their financial muscle, but rather that we can support them to work towards ultimately achieving the change they need. I want to close and say this is the time now for real change. The power indeed lies in the people's hands, not with political parties. I'm confident that this year's elections will be a watershed moment, because ultimately this is a moment we can make history. It's a moment, and therefore, those who are even intimating this whole idea that they want to postpone elections of 2021, I want to say, as One South Africa movement, as a citizen, and as someone who is a constitutionalist, I want to reject with the contempt any attempt to postpone elections. Not only does it fall against the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, it is also in citizens and in communities where people are desperate and hungry, seeking to give extended power and mandate to people who are failing communities. Therefore, we want to stand against that provision and simply say elections must happen within the constitutional framework that has been designed, and ultimately by November 2021, elections must take place. Fellow South Africans, the future of this country will not be shaped by any political party. Instead, we have to bring a new alternative. We have to bring a fresh start. And I've recognized, as many of you know, that change begins at a grassroots levels. It works with people who share a common goal, that goal of a non-racial society, a quality education system that empowers citizens, a resilient economy that includes every South African. We're laying a foundation for a South Africa's second transition, as citizens hand power, as we, the citizens, take back the power, and we indeed give power to the people. That when we say amandla, ngawethu, we truly are giving it to the people. We urge communities in this time to use their power to get behind their leaders, to get behind their communities, to ensure that those who truly represent them, instead of waiting for those who will be imposed by political parties. All South Africans can make submissions for your independent candidacy. It is indeed time to take back the power and give true voice in government. Let me just, before we take questions in this press conference, highlight the fact that the pact that we've designed as One South Africa movement, what it does, it acts as a contract between the candidate and the community, so that ultimately they can build a society where, A, there can be racial, cultural, and gender harmony, that citizens can be fairly and equitably participate in our economy and prosper, that students, young and old, can have an access to world-class education that empowers them for the future, that our citizens can be able to live free of crime and corruption, that we can address the historical injustices of South Africa and any future injustices perpetrated, that we can build a government that is capable, agile, transparent, and future-focused, that public representatives will be chosen directly by the people and are accountable to the people, and that we can live in a sustainable environment we can hand over to future generations, and therefore there will be human dignity for all that can never be taken away. This is our pledge, and we believe this contract acts as a partnership between communities and the candidate so that we build a South Africa we can all desire and prosper in. And therefore, with those, I want to thank you. Ke a leboga, siyabulela, enkosi. I'll take questions.
Okay, Abongile Tumago, SABC. We've heard you, Mhlakazi, talking about the fact that you will reach out to different communities in a bid to sell this idea, so to say, that you guys are going to be that is now also are going to be working with independent candidates. How confident are you that this approach will be well received by those independent candidates? Because one can't imagine but think that many would feel maybe also will end up sort of swallowing them, and they don't get to have the impact that they would have intended to have. And then for these local government elections, they specifically which municipalities would you say you are sort of gunning for?
Sure.
In as far as the voting is concerned.
Yeah.
Because
are there other questions? Perhaps, maybe. Yes.
Innocent from Love World News. I would like to kindly ask on the School of Governance for the independent candidates. Is it only open for OSA or anybody who's interested? And if perhaps the second question, if perhaps you're able to disclose who is funding one SIB?
Sorry, say that again, my
who's funding you?
Who's
Funding.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. Let me just give you just a few respond to certain questions. The first and foremost is that, Abongile, when we've been going across the country, one of the key problems in South Africa is that you are discovering that the majority of citizens, are not voting. So voter turnout is declining, and actually we are realizing that amongst youth and all of those candidates, they don't feel inspired by the party political system. Therefore, what I would like to do, and we have already started to see this, by the way, the National Council met, were able to give feedback from respective provinces and the various structures. People are enthused by the idea that they can have power, they can deal with the people. I remember even late last year, I was in the Free State, just to give context to this issue. When I arrived in the community, people were also as frustrated about the fact that political parties impose candidates and then they leave. So they were very committed to the process of saying, we want to identify the person, and they are working now. We will work with the person, train them, and ultimately they can stand in the ward. So to me, I'm encouraged when I see the interest that is coming across communities, but also furthermore, as we go now in this next phase and open the public process, offer people training, work with them, I don't believe that it is in our interest to swallow anybody, because the contract actually still remains between citizens in their community and the candidate. OSA simply seeks to facilitate the strengthening of that democracy and identifying that you don't have people with criminal records standing, poor ethical leadership, badly trained that can't. So if you can't fit that criteria, honestly, we're not interested in you. And so to your other question, which someone asked is, how do you then go around and identify municipalities? I can say, even right now, we've been looking at Tshwane, we've been looking at communities in the city of Cape Town. We are looking at certain places even in KZN, but we are also, will be guided when we finish the process by the end of March to know the broad speaking, because communities are applying. You know, I've just finished the national tour of going around all the provinces to see where there's interest, where people are at, and municipalities that are failing specifically. People are saying to us, please come to our municipality, we want to work. So once we are able to gauge all the applications, all the process, we can then be able to definitively, I'll come back to you, and be able to say, here's the full list of communities that are going to be coming forward. Here are the candidates, so that not only do we give effect to truly power to the people, but we also don't simply say we'll go across the whole country and just simply campaign, where it doesn't work like that. You've got to ensure that you really are serious about bringing change in those communities. I like the question about funding because, as I say, I'm most grateful of the fact that the party political funding bill has been passed. I think transparency is necessary. And where we're at, we're ensuring that funding comes from ordinary people. We've gone ahead and said where we're going to raise funding, we've got to work with those communities, because those communities have the means within them. I think we cannot make elections expensive. You can't make money be the limitation to bring the best leaders to the fore. So as One South Africa movement, of course, we are always engaged in a broad work of saying, how do we help independents be able to get the appropriate funding in their communities, with business, with their fraternities, with their partner organizations, so that we can raise the appropriate funds for them to be able to contend for those elections. So that work is happening. In terms of the School of Governance, once people have applied and we've looked through all their respective applications, we can then be able to predetermine. So it's not open just to OSA members. It is broad, because I want the best people to stand in their communities. Membership is but one component of any movement, as it were. Our primary interest is giving power back to the people. So people will be applying. Some of them may not be OSA people. They very well will probably not. I am comfortable with that, because they come from the community. And when they come from the community, we can ensure that we give them the best training, work with them, and ultimately work with the pact. So long as they share our values, we can then move. So that's where the School of Governance is open and can achieve that. Now, there are some questions here that have been sent to me. It's a personal question. Do you, Musi, plan to stand for any position as an independent candidate in this local government? I want to be clear, for me personally, this is not a personal issue. I want to work with independent candidates all across the country in communities, and so personally I'll be supporting, working with them and campaigning. We are also setting a strong foundation towards 2024. So the conversation about where Musi stands is also to work with the Constitutional Court judgment that will ensure that independents can stand in the national election in 2024. And so we'll look at it then. So I just want to help the business day in that regard. And I can give you a guarantee, we've already, even within OSA, I've got a number of councillors who are part of the movement. Now we've got to work and capacitate that and make sure that the best training is given to them, the understanding of local government issues will work. So I will then work with those people. I hope that clarifies that question. Ubaba Alwa from EWN. It says here that when independent candidates are finally allowed on the national and provincial ballots, when electoral laws are reformed or amended in Parliament, will One South Africa also use the same independent approach? And will Musi, I think people want to talk to me about what that will be. Of course, the goalposts are changing come 2024. The rule of how we elect people must change, naturally. I cannot stress this enough. I am sick and tired of people being protected by their political parties after they've looted the money. Now there are structures that are meeting somewhere to decide whether a person is innocent or not. Whereas it wasn't the party's money that was stolen, it was South Africa's money that was stolen. So let us be clear about this issue. The reason we want to give direct democracy an opportunity to work is to ensure that accountability is always with the people. So as for Mmusi Maimane is concerned, we will be using the same model in 2024. We will ensure that, and I want to stand because I really believe in this country. I want to play my part in this nation, and in 2024 you'll see me there working with people along with 2021, and I want to ensure that we bring the change in this country because I believe strongly in direct democracy and making sure people are elected by the people, serve the people, and for the people. So to this question to Baba Alwa, I'm looking forward to it, and I want to work in building the change in this country. Unless you and I are convinced that the way things are going in South Africa serves the people of this country, I would urge that it's not, and it requires change, as I said, of government and governance. And I'm putting my hand up to say I want to serve communities, work with them so that they have the power to bring the change they need. I think the question that is sent here by Apiwe has been covered in terms of finances, where it comes from, and then you asked the question about budgeting and all of that. As I said, we're establishing two structures. There's also a national elections campaigns team that is dealing with budget support, because let's not be confused, fellow South Africans. If someone is standing in a relatively wealthy community, the community has the means to be able to support them. And clearly, someone who is standing in a very poor community will require support. And I think the way we want to work going forward is to ensure that support is differentiated depending on the means of the community, so that where there are poor candidates, we can assist and ask South Africans from different parts to be able to assist those candidates, so that when it's said and done, they're able to do what they need to do to win. Elections cannot be won by money. You see, that's where big political parties use. I read somewhere in the newspaper to say now they are going back to Parliament to ask for more money from South Africans so that they can take away power from South Africans. So what we're saying is, no, give it back to the people. Give direct elections the issue. Give it a chance so that we can ensure that they get the accountability there. So obviously in very poor communities, we'll be able to partner, and I'm making an appeal to South Africans. Let's make it possible for citizens who represent their communities to be elected so that they can bring the change. Thank you very much.